3/12/24. Press conference reveals new NAZCA mummies. Intracranial measurements show this species has 30% more mass.
To ask you, through the studies that you have been performing to this body, have you found something that it has been manipulated? Well, we saw things that are similar to human beings and different to human beings. For example, the hands, the three fingers, and there's the separation of the radius and cubitus. And on the tibia, there's also something so particular. The backbone is completely different. You have these samples. Can you please help us if we can see detail? Something common from the people that do not support this type of research tell that this was modified, right? But to make sure, I made a test with this human foot, and what we can see that is completely different are the joints. As you can see, the different steps, and we can see the manipulation. When there's a radiography of hands and foot, we can see that maybe a normal person cannot see this, but a radiologist can realize that this is completely different. This also happens with the hand. We can see the first, we took out the first and last finger, and we can see the differences. That here, we can see that here there's a manipulation. With the extraction of fingers, with the different considerations, we can see that there has been a modification. Something that we should know also, if you can show us or describe, doctor, here something that we have is completely different. Here, there's a head study to show as scientific evidence. This is the head of Maria. It has something human and something different for this cephalometric or head study. There's diameters, something that is used as craniometric points to measure the head, and it is something, it's a diameter that is not considered human. And this is something that is considered to be able to see the measures, normal measures. And the skull and the face, as we can see, is completely different than the human. In the human, the normal volume of skull and face is 1. This is a human, 1 of 1. And in Maria, we can see the difference of the skull is 1,995 cubic centimeters. And we can see that there's an increase of a 30% of head mass, and it is something that this specimen has, and it can be bigger, right? We can see that it is bigger. The next slide says that it has also an alteration according to the face. The maxillary is completely in front of what we call a protrusion to the maxillar face, and the angle is the normal one is 82, right? And the one of Maria is 108. What we can see, it is that it's displaced to the front, and it is something that is completely different. We also find that it was completely different. It has prognatism, And it has two conditions. These two conditions are not that common in human beings, and this is something that is telling us that it is not a human being. Also, something important, it is the socket, the eye socket, that normally this socket should be smaller, and it is something that we can see that the orbit is on a certain way out of the body. This is the face of Maria. It has an eye protrusion. And aside from all of the technical definition, scientific definition, this is something that we showed you. And to continue with the dynamic of this presentation, let's call Dr. Daniel, that is one of the specialists that has been closer to Maria, this specimen, so that he can explain all of the details. If you can please stand here. What is your specialty? I'm professor of the medicine department, and I'm retired.
This X-rays, and before we start, I want to thank so much for allowing me to be here on December 4th of 2019, around 2015. They brought to my diagnosis center a specimen together with others for radiographic to take radiographies, and this body or specimen characterized called as Maria has three basic segments: the skull, the thoracic abdominal, and the extremities. And you can see in the upper part of the skull is divided in two core parts: the cranial area and the base of the cranium. And in the skull, you can see the internal and the external part, separating a radiological image of the spine medulla. Then we can have the radiotransparent part in the base of the cranium, in the medium and the front and the back floor. You can see the Turkish seat that has the hypophysis. So this specimen had internal secretion. The hypophysis regulates all the endocrinological system of a human being. In the face, we have the upper maxilla with the teeth, and in the bottom maxilla, we have the neck, and the cervical neck cannot be seen very well because of the position. In the thorax, we can see the backbone, and in the upper part, we can see the upper extremities and the inferior extremities that have been intertwined, and calling the attention of the upper extremities and the hands that have only 3 fingers, and on the backbone we can see between D7 and D8 the intervertebral spaces, they diminish, and with the dactylar would indicate that this backbone has had acquired alterations.